Hello, everyone. My name is Olivia. I'm 47 years old, and this is one of the most unbelievable stories I've ever experienced. Even now, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it, but I can't stop replaying the events in my mind.
Discovered he had spiked my drink. His justification? Technically, he only drugged his own and offered me a taste, implying it was somehow my fault. Fortunately, I sensed what was happening, left promptly, and managed to endure the effects at home alone. In hindsight, the situation could have turned out much, much worse. I arrived to find her best friend present, something I hadn't been informed about. Shortly after, her brother arrived. Then her father appeared. Next came her mother and 3 cousins, all under 5 years old. At that point, I excused myself to the restroom. Luckily, this place had a policy where staff discreetly helped patrons leave bad dates. Apparently, I became the first man they assisted in making an exit. After agreeing to a date, he asked me to dinner and what cuisine I enjoyed. I mentioned I was fine with anything except sushi. So, naturally, he took me to a sushi restaurant, claiming he thought he could persuade me to like it. Met a man for coffee after chatting online. Within 5 minutes, he started acting oddly and, when questioned, admitted he was disappointed that my chest appeared larger in my photos. He then went on about how crucial big breasts were to him. Cutting him off, I asked how large his penis was, grabbed my things, and quipped, "Too small for me," before walking out. 15 minutes into the date, he expressed his desire for me to eventually wear a full burqa. I already wear a headscarf, and commented that my makeup was excessive. I ended the date immediately. On a first date at a coffee shop, he picked up my foot. I was wearing cute sandals, and rubbed it briefly. Before I could react, he put all my toes in his mouth, right there at the table. Arrived nearly 30 minutes late to the restaurant, blaming traffic, despite us not living in a busy area. He was slightly drunk when he showed up, which I tried to excuse as nerves. I ordered food, and he ordered 3 beers. After drinking a few, he rated me a 7 out of 10 and suggested plastic surgery to make me model material. Though I repeatedly stated I was happy with my appearance, he wouldn't stop insisting on changes. After finishing my meal, I paid and planned to leave, but he persuaded me to go to a bar with him. I ordered 1 drink, only to turn around and see him bothering 2 young women who looked uncomfortable. I left my drink and walked out. The next day, I texted him that it wasn't going to work and blocked his number. A week later, his mother called me from an unknown number, saying how thrilled she was to hear about me and inviting me to dinner, which I politely declined. Her idea of a first date was shopping for wedding dresses. As we walked to the cafe, he said, "Just so you know, my family is very wealthy, and you'll be well taken care of. I'd like to get married after graduation, so don't worry about college or a job. You'll stay home." It was the largest collection of red flags I'd ever encountered. I left before even entering the cafe. Our first date was dull and uneventful. We discussed generic topics like work, family, and childhood, basic, shallow stuff. It was late on a Saturday afternoon. Afterward, I went to a pub to meet my friends. The next morning, I woke up late to find a series of texts, about 4 from her. She had listed all the things I should have done or said better, and pointed out what annoyed her. I felt pretty hurt reading them. I considered replying with, "There's no need for this. A simple goodbye would have been fine," but remembered not to text while emotional. That afternoon, she sent another message. "When would you like to try again? I think it could be fun. I finally replied, "Never." I accidentally walked into a glass panel, hit it hard, and got injured. Everyone else in the restaurant got up to check if I was okay, but he just laughed like a jerk. I told him I hoped he found what he was looking for elsewhere and left. During the date, he commented, "Sure, you're an engineer now, but once you're pregnant, you'll stop working, right?" The sheer number of assumptions in that single statement was staggering, and we hadn't even started eating yet. Years ago, I agreed to meet a woman at a coffee shop for a date. She arrived with 4 noisy kids who climbed on the furniture and nearly destroyed the place. I paid for our coffees and made a quick exit. He began explaining that his family had connections to the KKK, but insisted it wasn't for racist reasons. This was after he had rejected all non-American food options, which I initially excused as him being unfamiliar with other cuisines since he was from a small Texas town. I left money for my meal, which hadn't arrived, and walked out. I couldn't understand why he asked me out in the first place, given that I'm clearly Hispanic. When I was 18, a girl messaged me on MSN, saying she got my info from a friend and wanted to go on a date. After confirming with my friend, who said she was attractive, I agreed. She sent me a photo, and she looked good. On the day of the date, I went to the cafe and was approached by a girl I didn't recognize, holding a baby. She introduced herself as the girl I'd been talking to, though she looked nothing like her photo, and admitted she thought I wouldn't go out with someone who looked like her. She was right. Then she asked me to watch her baby while she went to the restroom. After 15 minutes, I asked a waitress to check on her, but the waitress returned saying no one was in there. I scanned the cafe and realized she'd disappeared. I had no way to contact her since smartphones weren't common, and I didn't have internet access. I called my friend, who was equally shocked and had believed her photos were real. After another 20 minutes, I got worried and asked the waitress for assistance. She called the police and I explained the situation. I didn't have any information about the girl to offer them. They advised me to tell her to contact them if she reached out. As I walked to my car, I passed another cafe nearby and saw her sitting with another man. I informed the police, who took the baby into their care while I watched from outside. When she noticed me through the window, I waved. It turned out I had been babysitting so she could go on her actual date. I went on a coffee date with a guy I now call PowerPoint Guy. He arrived with an actual presentation outlining non-negotiable requirements for his future partner. His demands included being a stay-at-home wife, having 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl in that order, not pursuing a career, moving 500 miles to live on a farm with his parents, avoiding male friends, and being open to him choosing other partners to sleep with while he watched. The list went on. He didn't ask a single question about me or my interests, and spent 2 hours talking about himself and his demands. I politely excused myself after that and decided there wouldn't be a second date. While he knew exactly what he wanted, PowerPoint Guy was not the match for me. My first and only blind date was set up by a mutual friend. She arrived and parked in a spot reserved for disabled people, using her grandmother's disability pass. That didn't sit right with me, but I decided to continue. We went bowling and then out to eat, but she was extremely rude to the staff at both places, which left me feeling embarrassed and uneasy. I ended dinner early, paid the bill, and never contacted her again. He criticized me for giving money to a homeless person outside the bar, then went on a tirade about how the streets were full of scum. I didn't even finish my first drink before telling him it wasn't going to work and leaving. She found fault with absolutely everything: my car, my outfit, even the cologne I was wearing. Our plan was to go bowling, have dinner, and then get drinks. When the server came by to ask if we wanted anything, I ordered a snack and asked if she'd like something too. Her response: "You mean you don't already know? What kind of date is this?" Midway through the bowling game, she complained about the topics I was bringing up in conversation. Thankfully, my brother called unexpectedly, asking to borrow fishing gear, and I pretended it was a work call. I took the chance to leave as quickly as I could. Straight to the point, she said, "I might as well tell you now. I expect you to stop talking to any other women in your life." She clarified she meant everyone, emphasized she was serious, and added that she gets jealous easily. When we saw an interracial couple, he expressed disgust. I commented that they looked adorable together, but he replied that he didn't agree with races mixing. After wandering around a stadium so he could photograph lampposts, yes, lampposts, we entered late, well after the match had started. Once inside, I told him I didn't drink, but he still bought me a beer. I also mentioned I was vegetarian, but he refused to let me order my own food, instead buying 2 hot dogs over my head. When we reached our seats and I wasn't eating, he yelled at me to eat the hot dog. I immediately made up an excuse about getting a text and left. He showed up 45 minutes late without calling or texting, just as I was finishing my drink and about to leave. He was chatting on the phone with a friend. When I approached to greet him, he raised his hand in my face and said, "Shh." I overheard his friend ask, "So, did you on her yet?" I loudly replied, "No, and he never will," before walking out. He told me, "I have 4 kids with 3 different women. I cheated on all of them, but I feel like things would be different with you. Do you like kids?" I excused myself to the bathroom and bolted. While we were at a club, he kept bumping into attractive women he knew but hadn't seen in a while. I overheard him complain to a friend, "I never see these ladies unless I'm here with a date. Why did I have to bring a date tonight of all nights?" I asked him to take me home so he could go back and enjoy all the women he never gets to see. He rudely snapped his fingers at a waiter, which left me absolutely mortified. I walked out before we'd even ordered drinks. He took me to a World War II museum and casually remarked, "You know, the Nazis weren't all that bad." That was my cue to leave immediately. She talked loudly throughout the entire movie, but would shush anyone who made even the slightest noise. He was staunchly anti-vaccine, to the point of claiming that Bill Gates is putting microchips in the vaccines. I didn't bother finishing my drink. After that, I started asking people about their vaccination status before agreeing to meet in person,